Call the meeting to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Carol Killen,
Here.
Krista Moranis, Larry McDermott,
Here.
Keith Norton,
Present.
Nancy Kiefer,
Here.
Bob Rand,
Here.
Helga Van Eckert, Victor Gooding, and Harry Lloyd.
Here.
All right.
Have a quorum.
Very good. Very good. Can we have approval of the minutes?
So moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Okay, reports. Helga is not here, obviously, so we will pass over Volusia County Economic Development and move to Team Volusia Economic Development Corporation and Mr. Keith Norton.
Thank you so much. Well, we continue to stay busy. We have a very active project pipeline, and I have brought annual reports from our annual meeting. Many of you were there, but if you'd like to pass them around, we had a banner year, and I'll give you one as well. Thank you. I sure appreciate it. But we are proud that we announced 5 projects last year with a total capital investment of $160 million, and then payroll new to Volusia County, $8 million payroll, but the total economic impact to the region was $262 million. Continue to have a strong pipeline of projects, and we recently had our annual meeting last Thursday evening. Was sold out, but we had 2 great speakers, Laura DiBella, the new Secretary of Commerce for Florida, as well as Mark Botringer, who is with the Space Force, formerly with Space Florida. But it was a great program. The slides were very descriptive, and we learned a lot about what's going on with the Space Force and the economic impact for Volusia County and Daytona Beach. So recently we exhibited at SpaceCom in Orlando, and that was in February, but a lot of our practitioners came, very appropriate for our recruitment of aviation and aerospace projects. And then this week, Tawana Arrington is at Satellite. Satellite is a trade show in an exhibit area in Washington, D.C., with really exhibitors from all over the world. As you may remember, that's where we identified Printec. Printec was a company we recently placed at the Embry-Riddle Research Park. Yeah. So it's a good way for us to identify strong leads. Right. And we continue to be active.
Keith, are you seeing activity maintain the pace that it has over the last 3 or 4 years, or is it picking up, or as the economy kind of shifts a little bit?
Well, we haven't seen a dip yet.
Okay.
So we're excited about there, and our project activity continues to be strong with Enterprise Florida and our own business recruitment efforts. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. We continue to enjoy working with the city of Daytona Beach and other cities and municipalities. And I'm proud to say that we just added Oak Hill, the city of Oak Hill, to our municipal partners. So
good. Well, they should be involved. I mean,
they should. They have a lot.
Stand to
yes.
benefit tremendously from the space program.
Very much so.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yes.
Question. Every time you come, you're always so positive, and all these good things that you guys are doing with all of us around. Give me just an overview of where you think we're going in this economy, the way it is now, and maybe future. I mean, how do you really feel about the overall look?
Well, I feel positive because we have a lot of potential. And our speakers, particularly Laura DiBella, the Secretary of Commerce, and many of you were there. We've got the geographic location, the I-4, I-95 intersection, strategically placed between two ports. And then everything that's happening on the corridor, the I-4 corridor, that's the highest growth area of Florida and possibly the country. So they indicated that a lot of that would be coming over. While we might not see a launch pad facility in Volusia County anytime soon, the amount of business that's going on in Brevard County and the Space Coast will help us, our economy, not only southeast Volusia, but everywhere in Volusia County.
Interesting.
If you think about it, Technetics in DeLand, and that's one of two Technetics facilities. There's one in Daytona Beach, but they manufacture every ring used in every rocket that's launched off of Kennedy Space Center.
Really?
Really?
So, you know, the implications of that are amazing, what's going on down there. But also the Central Florida and Orlando
Great.
and all the growth.
Yeah.
But no one can dictate what the
What-
economy is
yeah.
going to do based on what we've read this week.
That's why I was asking the question. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you know, really, you have to have motivation, education, and location of labor forces. And I've always found that over my long tenure in economic development have been one of our chief weaknesses. Okay? For a while, it looks like it's going to pick up and do better than that. And the location, by that I mean locating jobs, and we have a very good manner of doing that with, but we just the problem in some of the areas in Daytona. If you look at the Cube reports, Daytona Beach is always 0.8% higher on unemployment and with a lower wage rate than the surrounding communities, even the local communities. Not talking about going down to South Florida, Tampa, Orlando, whatever. You know, and that's always seemed to have been the problem. I was talking to one of the city commissioners last night, and I said, you know, it's not that we need affordable housing as much as we need higher income so people can afford existing housing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been a real problem. Now, I think some of the housing costs are going to start coming back, and building materials are coming back. But I'm not trying to make a speech here, but you know, until I see more of a concerted effort in that labor market, especially some of the weaker labor markets in the Daytona Beach area, it makes it difficult for me to see how some of these companies, every company that I know of is screaming for qualified, educated
Yeah.
employees. I mean, just screaming for them. And yet we keep having this disconnect. And I don't know what the motivation is for these students. They, you know, they're, 16, 18, 20 years old. I know that my motivation is when I got here in 1973 is my checkbook that said zero.
Keith?
I took the first job I could get, and that was with Henry Coleman over at Sunbank. So, that's kind of my motivation.
Sure. Keith, can you talk a little bit about the lack of supply of real estate
Product.
in the city of Daytona Beach, product for the inquiries that you get?
Sure.
And how, I know you get a lot of inquiries that we just
We do.
have
and
nothing.
For example, we had a manufacturer, we found really two buildings in the area, one in Daytona Beach and one in DeLand. I mean, the product is very low when we're talking about filling manufacturing space. We have spec space coming online, which is very encouraging, but for the random array of project inquiries, many of those are 18,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet, particular ceiling heights at 40 feet high or 36 feet high, and we just don't have the product. And that means we don't get the visits. If we don't have the product and we have the inquiries, then we don't get the visits.
Is that a function of not having land available to
that's what I
put
was
the
gonna-
product up?
yeah.
Or is it a function of land out there that's not being developed for one reason or another?
Well, I think it's the fact that there hasn't been a lot of new product coming online of that type. You know, we see some coming up, but it is a concern. We don't have a lot of Class A office space, as you know, Bob, and so we do the best we can. It is encouraging that we have spec space, but some of the spec space, it may be filled as soon as it's built, particularly in key areas off of I-4. And once that happens, then we go back to ground zero with no product.
Right.
But while we definitely, to address Larry's thoughts, while we definitely pursue aviation airspace, we realize what our region is all about. Because of the geography and our strategic location, we still recruit logistics centers, logistic operations, which makes sense because we've got this strategic area of the country. And then manufacturing is still a key target for us. So while we had a speaker from Space Force, I don't want everyone to think that's all we recruit. We recruit all across
Well, back to
targets.
what he was saying, maybe I didn't hear it properly, but if we had more land available and go to a developer to actually put up some of this stuff prior, I mean, would that help at all or not?
Well, it is, but then
We've
you're
got
dealing
land
with. We
available.
do, but then it's dealing with the capital markets and developers, and a lot of developers won't build without a tenant,
Knowing what they're going
knowing
to
that
build.
it's built. That's the deal. We're lucky to have some spec development that is just building for the sake of how strong our project pipeline is and the interest in Volusia County.
Well, I would argue that we do not have a lot of land available for light industrial development. There is not, in the city of Daytona
Developable
Beach,
land.
there is not a lot of
With-
developable land.
Right, with
for-
utilities to the
No,
front door.
shovel ready is the term, and we don't
Well,
have a lot of
but not even land that could be rezoned or that
Mm-hmm.
is capable of being developed into industrial type properties. And I think, we need to look for opportunities, whether it's redevelopment in certain areas to include that type of use, or bringing in, county properties into the city that we can to zone appropriately for that type of development.
We do have large tracts of land, but those are going to be developed into very large facilities.
Right.
But again, we don't have many of those.
Right.
Recently, I was in Savannah area, and I was deciding I didn't want to drive on the interstate for some reason, and I took 17 around, and that put me right in the middle of the port
Yes.
and the airport. I don't know. I must have counted 8, probably closer to 10 slabs, just slabs, of probably 250,000 square feet at least. They were all done by the Evans Group, which is a large development firm, and it was sitting there. It was ready because that building could have gone up. If it was block metal building with a
And the slab's
40 foot,
there.
it could be up in 6 months.
Yeah.
And you got to give these companies a time period if you have something like that. And that makes that time period much smaller, makes their ability to move in and get moving something that they can see. It's less than a year. And that's what, again, going back to the old days, people, when I used to call on people in Chicago and Atlanta and those types of things like you do, that's what they wanted. They wanted, hey, I need to know within a year that I'm going to be able to put people in that building and have it ready to be occupied and productive. So I agree with that. We need to, and I don't know exactly what we need to do. We've talked about it for years between Volusia County and the tracts of land that Daytona owns west of town, those types of things, that there could be a donation of land or whatever to a developer to do that. But if you do that, oh my gosh, the residents would go absolutely
Well,
crazy.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's a faction that would,
I thought too.
but and I don't know if you have to give anybody land, but I think the city ought to be looking at incentive packages for developers who want to develop industrial space. And I don't know where we fall in relation to other areas our size and the incentives that we offer, if we offer any at all. And even if it's a fast tracking system, I know the story with B. Braun, how that was fast tracked through the city, and having a team that can fast track a project, because we all know that when a company wants to come here, they don't want to hear it'll be 24 to 30 months before we can do anything for you. They want to hear 12 to 18 months.
Right.
And so I think, and unfortunately, we tend to wait until those opportunities present themselves before we put that team together, right? And maybe the team ought to be put together sooner rather than later, and we broadcast the fact that we can do that. And
Well, we've seen, we've had recent experience with the city of Daytona Beach on numerous projects, and we've seen really fast response, not only to inquiries, but also projects and going in front of the city commission. So not every city or municipality we represent is like that. So I applaud Mr. Brown and Mr. Fiacher for running a program like that. Also, the incentives that the city of Daytona Beach offer make sense. They're performance-based. And the shortcoming that we are finding are and will be the lack of incentives done by the state of Florida, because we compete with other states. And so we have one right now that visited, liked it, large capital investment, and they also were considering Texas. And so we're second or third place. Texas is at the forefront. Many people in the state believe that companies will locate because of our beaches and our palm trees and quality of life. But when these CEOs and CFOs look at the bottom line of a project on a site location process, that goes away.
right.
So
Shareholders don't care
Well-
that we have beaches.
Yeah, that's incentives and the tax situation in both these states, I would guess.
well, taxes, we're okay. We're fourth best tax climate for Florida
Okay.
in the country.
Yeah.
So we're okay with taxes, but it's just when you're dealing with companies, when there may be nothing for a company on a statewide basis, or something from another state, that's hard to
Yeah. fight
compete against
Yeah.
for the mega projects, for the
Well,
large projects.
thank you so much for the
Yeah, thanks, Keith.
discussion.
Well, you're veterans, as well as
We
Nancy.
could chew
Been here
we
too
could chew
long.
on
Brown.
this doodle
Yeah,
for a
so
long
anyway.
time.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Keith.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Nancy, the Daytona Beach Regional Chamber.
Yes, good morning. First of all, just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we are in process of a move. So we have a
Right.
temporary location at 200 South Ridgewood, where we'll be spending about a year of our time, as the Chamber of Commerce will still be fully operational, working from that facility as we undergo a major transformation of the chamber property. We're very excited to begin demolition in April, which is next week, I think, so, or the week after. But we are moving along. We have fully funded from a private sector and grant aspect at this point. So we've done a really good job engaging the funding that will be necessary to build that facility. So we're excited about that. Again, will be 200 South Ridgewood. It isn't going to be like a walk-in visitor center just because it's not set up for that, but obviously we'll be available to assist anybody coming in. They can buzz into the door and we'll be there for them. It is legislative season, which is no surprise to everybody, so that keeps us a little bit busy at the chamber. We are preparing for Volusia Days, January 28th and 29th. March 28th and 29th. Thank you, Keith. I'm going backwards in time now. Instead of wishing the days away, I'm going backwards now. But, you know, a couple of things that have come up. Obviously, one of the alerts we have going on right now is on lawsuit abuse reform. You know, Keith mentions we're 4th in the state for best, you know, economic climate for taxes. We're 46th in the state when it comes to lawsuit abuse. So it is a big issue. It's a business issue and it's a residential issue because every time these frivolous lawsuits go forth, it costs us. It costs us as consumers in the area. So that's a big deal. We've got an alert going on that for both House bills and Senate bills. We're also very focused on hurricane recovery. That will be a continuous conversation we have, affordable housing and workforce development. As we were talking about workforce, you know, I wanted to make everybody aware that our VP of Resource Development, Ken Phelps, was selected by the U.S. Chamber to take part in a fellowship. This is across the nation, and we got a spot in that fellowship fully paid for by the U.S. Chamber. The focus has been on workforce development in the talent pipeline. He's actually headed to Miami today for the final part of a 6-month cohort. And a lot of what he's learning there is we're bringing back to the community conversation here. We have just reinstituted a workforce and education task force at the chamber, and it's all stakeholders getting together from early learning all the way to postgraduate and everything in between, economic development partners, and having the conversation so we can find out, you know, again, are there areas that aren't being addressed? You know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we want to see where we can support to bolster opportunity as well as find if there's holes. So I'm really excited about our involvement there, and it really is an honor that we had a seat in that particular cohort. When we're in Tallahassee, we do have meetings set up with FDOT to have a great detailed conversation about LPGA. So we've got time on their schedule. They will also be presenting to the entire delegation that is there, but we've got some private time with them to have a good conversation about what that means to our area. I did want to just mention also that we have a joint business after hours with the City of Daytona Beach on March 21st, and that'll be at the Yvonne Scarlett Golden Cultural and Educational Center. Along with the City of Daytona Beach, we're partnering with the Urban Chamber of Commerce, and it'd just be a great opportunity for us all to get together, you know, network and have conversations about our community. And I think that is it on my list to talk about.
Good.
All right.
Well, and thank you for your annual meeting. It went really, really well.
Yeah, that was really good. Very good. Okay, let's move on to old business. First of all, is there anything else that anyone wants to discuss before we get to old business?
Well, on the other board members, is there anything on filling our
applications?
empty spots for the board?
So
members?
I've not heard back from the CVB. I will touch base again with them and find out. And if not, then we'll put out again another call for applications. And I'll get then with Ms. Goodman in the city manager's office about getting somebody appointed to fill up Ms. Evans' position.
You know, I nominate John Nicholson.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. The economic element, Daytona Beach Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as a result of our 2 or 3 meetings that we had, I put together all the comments onto one sheet and sent it back out to everybody to make sure that everything that was stated during the meeting has been put down correctly, so I can get it to Doug Gutierrez in our planning department, and then to get it before the planning commission and then the city commission, and ultimately into the packet of changes and updates that we need to do to our comprehensive plan. There was only there was one or two policies that, that I didn't see any comments, and I think it's just something that we went over. But 2.17 on page, I think it's the third page, was something that I didn't remember, or I didn't write down anything that anybody had said that they wanted to do about this. And actually 2.1.8
I
as
think we
well.
were just going to leave it.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
see anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
Okay,
just keep it.
so we'll keep, and then 2.1.8, I think is another one I think we just said, leave alone as
Yeah.
well. On the next page, we had 3.1.4, and it may have just been one that we just kind of glossed over as a keep, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think that was just,
Poetry reading?
yeah.
And I believe that was all of them.
Yeah, just, that one's good, keep.
I think that was the last one that we had. But I just wanted to make sure that anything that I had as modify, that the modification was explained in the far column, as you see there. And wanted to make sure that I put down on paper exactly the committee's thoughts.
We
Yeah, no.
indicate a modification of policy 2.11, but there's no explanation of that.
So I think that one was, and I may have already done it, but I think the changing of the names, I think it was the Convention and Visitors Bureau was a question, and the Hotel Motel Association were the names, and those are generally still accepted in use. So I think that's why I left out that explanation there.
So, do we need a motion to approve the changes as
Correct.
noted on here?
Yes.
Oh, we do, okay. I so move that we accept the.
Second?
Second.
Yep,
All right. Any discussion before we vote? We have a motion to approve and a second. With no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
Very good. I will then add the two things on there that I need to add as far as keeping, and we'll send those then to the
Very good.
planning
well, I
department.
appreciate you bringing this to us too, because I think it ultimately helped us as well as you in
Correct.
updating everything, so.
Yeah, it was a good exercise. Okay, let's move on to new business. Economic and Strategic Opportunities Report.
All right, sent in your packet was the monthly TRT report.
I don't think we got that.
I don't see it in here.
Yeah.
I think I got it online, but. I mean,
Yes.
In the email, yeah.
Okay. No, the
Yeah,
TRT report,
this right
the
here.
full
This
here.
length,
The one sheet in the back.
Okay.
wasn't it?
No, this wasn't the TRTs.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a monthly report of the TRT. I'll double check, make sure I did send it.
Yeah, I think I saw it in the email.
Okay, the next thing then is our monthly CO report. As you see there, we issued 75 residential COs for last month.
The number is falling, isn't it?
It is, and I don't know if it's because of the pipe, the departments are kind of a mixed bag because they're all at once.
Yeah.
So you may have half of a building completed and CO'd out, and it just may be because of the time frame of the work that we don't have all a full building,
Well,
so they don't
we've
get
been
all
fairly consistent in this number, in this range, for a few months now.
Correct.
We were at 250 a year ago.
Yeah,
So it's reflecting a little bit of a slowdown in
It is, but
Certainly not feeling it out on LPGA.
No, we're not feeling any slowdown.
no, and I
Building
don't,
away.
and I don't think you see it slowing down in our TRT report.
Right.
I think we had one kind of, I now look at it back on it as kind of a blip,
Yeah.
kind of a month, where we didn't have a lot of activity, but we're starting to see, yesterday's TRT, we were between 9 and 12. I think there was only one half-hour slot that was not filled by somebody coming in and wanting to have a conversation about development of some shape or form. So I think we kind of I think everybody's kind of trying to figure out what the new news going to look like,
Right.
and now can move forward.
Okay, very good.
Also, last thing I'm going to have is that Mr. Lloyd asked me about commercial COs. And so last year, so January 1st to December 31st of 2022, there were 44 new commercial structures, COs issued in the city.
Really? That's
You know what the relative value was?
a good number.
That I don't know, but I can find it out and I'll email it to y'all.
Okay, great.
I'll find that out. And it's the COs for commercial kind of tricky because you may have a strip center being built, but when do the other COs come online? And so that was part of trying to wrap my head around how do we get that correct number. And when there's turnover and there's change and they may take out, say, walls and do some other things, then that may adjust as well and have to cause a new CO to be issued. But I was strictly interested in how many new commercial structures were built.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Public comment.
I did have one thing I wanted to ask Jeff.
Yes, sir.
A couple months ago, I had discussed with you about the incentive packages that we would generally, as prior to your tenure, review those packages for the city commission prior to going to commission.
Correct.
Where is that standing now?
So we've not had anybody ask for a commercial incentive package yet. So we've not had to bring any forward. The only one that we've had since I've been here was for a residential affordable housing package, I'll call it. And so we're currently working, and Keith and I and his team were discussing even last week. I won't say it's an issue, but trying to get a user that came through his process and has hired a local attorney that knows this package that we do for incentives, kind of get them engaged and let's get the agreement knocked out so we can get it in front of the city, in front of y'all, and then in front of the city commission for approval. And we're just having a time of it. It's the best way I can say it.
I believe it's really the communication between the end user, the company, and the law firm. So I don't think it's the law firm's fault. But
Yeah.
Not, this is televised, so that may be. Never mind, I didn't say that.
Okay. it never did. I have one question. It's offline a little bit, but where is the rezoning process right now?
Rezoning of,
The city, they're going to redraw.
oh, the redistricting?
Redistrict, I'm sorry, redistricting.
Yeah,
Where- Where is that now?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not in that.
I think that we're having one more meeting or something, public meeting, and
Yeah.
I don't remember.
When is that, John?
Today?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, with that,
Yeah, I don't,
so. Go
ahead.
No, I'm good.
You're going to be there, right, John? Okay.
John, would you like to come forward
Come
and
right on up.
address the board.
Two of you here have heard this before, but about 20 years ago, I suggested that.
Name and address, please.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I suggested that you pre-approve certain locations for massive, I think it's 100,000 square feet or more is what they're looking for, and that they don't pay taxes until it's rented. Because part of it, I believe, is they don't want to upgrade and then have to pay the taxes until they wait for someone to arrive. Back then, who knew when somebody would
Are you
arrive?
talking about if we're going from agricultural to a different zoning, a PUD zoning?
Zoning, plus also that they build the building, that they have 100,000 square feet or 250,000 square feet or whatever, and they pay the taxes from when they started, not after they built the building. Because it doesn't matter to us if we get the $50 in agricultural taxes for 40 years, or if they put a building on it and they still pay $50. However, it has the opportunity for someone to move right in and we get $50,000 in taxes. Do you understand my meaning? We've got a building or a lot on the beach side. It pays $47,000 a year in taxes. We have an identical building at the other end of Ocean Avenue, which pays $1.5 million, plus water, plus the spending of the people that are there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we get $5 million off of one property because we gave TIF funds. We refused to give TIF funds to the other one, and we still get $47,000. To me, we've gained almost $100 million off of one property, and we've gained $600,000 off the other because of the way we looked at doing it. To me, it doesn't make sense. We have somebody on the board that says, but we don't want to incentivize. And I'm like, oh, yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. Because you can do more with $500 million than you can with $600,000. So I'm asking you to think about, one, you talked about a map. You absolutely should have a map. All right? We had a discussion at the city, what's available west of 95, okay? What's already spoken for? What will be developed, okay? There's almost no land left west of 95, north of, believe it or not, 92. It's all spoken for. There is someone coming in west of Tomoka Farms Road in that area. So that literally everything that you visualize north of 92 and west of 95 is spoken for. All right? The area north of what we call LPGA is already spoken for. The large tract of land that the Speedway owns is available. It used to be commercial. And when Kerry Smith was here, he allowed it to go to agricultural. They have a hay farm on it. Okay? But at this point, can I speak a little bit?
Go ahead.
At this point, if we can guarantee them they get the tax incentive for agricultural, but we've put in a system that it doesn't take 18 months to go through the rigmarole that we have. We have a terrible problem with having to go to this committee, then you wait to go to this committee, then you have to wait to go to that committee before you can do anything else, and you're waiting for 6 or 8 months. All right?
Exactly.
It makes no sense to me. So if you can do a map and say, all right, this is still agricultural land, and we know we want residences here, here, and here, but we know that this is ripe for development. Delta only had one location for development. That's all they had. We have like 7 or 8 now. We know that there's development for industrial and commercial on that Tomoka property. We know, what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. He came before the city. He wants to do development west of I-4 interchange. If you know where that hits 92, there's a big stretch of land out there by the jail, this side of the jail.
That is
That's-
currently spoken for, and that they're
Right.
developing there.
They're developing that, okay? But we know that that's there, and we know that somebody's going to develop commercial south of I-4 and 95 right off Tomoka. So there are certain areas that we know development is going to go in. They're having houses, but they're having a section of commercial, a section of this. So if we can plot that out in advance and have maps, there's very few land left, seriously, that we don't already know that something's going in. There is land that neither Ormond has nor we have. It goes almost to LPGA. It's a little rectangular piece. I don't know why we haven't annexed it into the city. We allowed the Ormond to take that corner, the southwest corner of Granada and 95. We allowed them, I think, 700 acres.
Oh, it's,
But beyond that, there's this huge rectangular piece. It's a little skinny piece, and then a big rectangular piece that almost comes to LPGA that Ormond can annex because there's a land bridge. I'm asking you to think about talking to the owners because it makes sense for them
Right.
because we are so much more develop friendly than Ormond is.
Right.
To grab that, and if we could do the development, that would be perfect for it because it's right next to 95 and Tomoka Farms Road. So there are a lot of things that we
you
can.
know that, Bob?
Yeah,
You know?
well, I'm not familiar with that particular piece, but I know we've had conversations about identifying county, unincorporated areas that could conceivably be annexed into the city for the purpose of future industrial or commercial development. And doing that, being very proactive about that, and this would fall into that category.
Correct.
So I think that's I mean, Jeff and I have had several conversations with other staff about that, and I think we're building some steam in that regard, but identifying those properties, those outlying properties that could conceivably be annexed into the city for future development. People want a Daytona Beach zip code. If you're an industrial developer or a commercial property, you want a Daytona Beach zip code, not
Ormond or
an Ormond or a
something, yeah.
Port Orange.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the fact of the matter.
Right.
So,
I'm glad you're
I think
doing that because it makes sense to me.
being very proactive, I think, is what we need to do at this point.
Well, I like the
Because-
idea of a map. We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of the things that you well know, John, and you know how many community meetings I attend. Last night,
Yeah.
I got attacked for my stance again, being pro-development from some of the citizens who,
What meeting was last night?
Seabreeze,
Oh, at the community meeting.
yeah,
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah, and you know, it's gonna, it's not, you know, it's right now it's just a bunch of birds rustling in the bushes.
Right.
But, you know, at election time, it gets really very, very virulent. And, you know, as election time gets closer, the commissioner is going to have more of a political, you know, desire to meet, you know, the needs of the people out there. They don't understand that, you know, that if you don't have some development, then infrastructure, different roads, sewer, water, all of that stuff doesn't get improved.
And your taxes go up.
Correct.
Yeah.
And your quality of life goes down.
Right.
You know, and so I get, you know, because of my probe stance, I get, you know, pretty much attacked them. You know, but that's all right. I know how to defend that.
Right.
Well, no, but the point is, I would much rather see different areas zoned out for special, almost like you do for brownfields or something,
Right.
where the city has certain areas where they'll take that property and do exactly what you're talking about. Maybe they're incentive zones or whatever else for development.
Right.
And certainly annexing in new properties for commercial development has no.
well, in some cases, it may require a future land use change, right?
Understand.
And
Yeah.
that's a long process. And if that can be identified early on and initiated by the city
Right.
for those areas, that cuts your timeline down by 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, that's what, of course, we were
So-
talking about earlier in the
So, yeah,
conversation with Keith.
So I think that's, your comments are well taken, and I think we all agree that
Okay.
we need to be a little more proactive in how we move forward with development.
Right.
And could I do one more?
Sure.
I have a pet peeve. Counted all the property on A1A and on the beach that's available, that is vacant. 40 lots is a hellacious number. Considering what we've done on the west part of the city, every 10 years we build one building on beachside on the ocean. When I went to Miami for my mother's 83rd birthday, we took a cruise, turned around and looked, there were 27
Stacks going up, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20
new buildings being built at the same time.
Yeah.
It's, to me, having one every 10 years is ridiculous. The Shores, before 2008, every year they were building a new building. And in those 14, 15 buildings they built, we built one.
You can gauge the economic activity in an area by how many cranes are
Right.
erected, right?
And we had one with the Daytona Grand. Okay. Now we have one on Driftwood. Okay. They took down the other one on Daytona Grand because they're not building the condominium yet. Okay. How can we incentivize this? Waterfront property is a value. We had a commissioner that wanted to put HUD housing on the beach side because they were not building the Daytona Grand condominiums. She wanted to put HUD housing there. And she thought, well, what do you think of put HUD housing there? And I'm like, absolutely not. Yeah. The mayor wants to put HUD housing on the old Black Pearl site, which I think is asinine, pardon my language. You don't put your least valuable entities on your most valuable land, all right? You need that tax fund to fund what you need to fund. So to kill your tax base because you think it's nice is not the way to go. Is there a way of incentivizing the building on all of our riverfronts? Restaurants, especially on the west side, there are like 12 sites that we could put restaurants on our river. We've got what? Chart House and name another one on the river. That's it. In a city like Daytona Beach, you have one restaurant on the river.
Well, we've got a couple,
Caribbean Jack.
but yeah.
Oh, yeah, Caribbean Jacks, that's two.
Your point is well taken, though.
But yeah, it doesn't make sense. We don't use our river at all, really. And that goes back with the conversation with Glenn Ritchie, 20 years ago when he was mayor? 15? And we've done nothing since. Is there a way of incentivizing and using our river to its highest and best use? Understand? Thank you.
We appreciate your comments, and thank you very much.
But just for a point of order, John, back in 2001 when Caribbean Jacks was constructed, it used to be English Jim's Marina. We were able to go, I was part of that project with Dan Linnaeus, and we were able to get a 10-year tax abatement for that project, for building the dry stack, the improved wet slips, the fueling, and the restaurant. All of that complex came under a 10-year abatement program.
And was it worth it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So why can't we do it elsewhere?
Yeah, English Jim's wasn't pushing too much in the assessment.
It's a very popular restaurant.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Okay, any other public comment? I don't see anybody in the audience, but if there's anybody out in the other room. Okay, with that, our next scheduled meeting is 8:30, April 19th. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll call the meeting adjourned.
All right.